It's Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I'm your humble host, Podboy Kevin Keatsman, in the seat today, and we've got a fine show lined up for you today. The two big news events from overnight and this morning we will discuss here at the start of the show coming up in just a moment. We'll have a chance to take some of your phone calls. We will take a look at a record for Memorial Day weekend coming up that we will share with you. Patrick Touhey will be here at 10:30 from the Show Me Institute after our discussion yesterday about Kansas Star Bonds and the state of Missouri and where they are on competing with one another for the Royals and Chiefs and other businesses, whether or not these states should be competing against one another or the truce that they supposedly had that none of them followed. Patrick Touhey will be here, always enlightening, very smart guy. And we'll have some fun with Mark at the end of the show, including a new assistant basketball coach at Kansas that I predict will be the next head coach at Kansas. I'll go ahead and predict that right now. But we start with, I won't spend as much time on this because I want to get to the big, beautiful bill, but I don't really know how to put into words the tragedy that is the United States of America today, that a man from Chicago named Elias Rodriguez travels to Washington, D.C. on behalf of Islamic terrorists and stands outside the Israeli embassy and waits for Jewish people to walk out, 4 of them, and opens fire on them and kills 2. And one of the 2 killed is from Kansas City. Sarah Milgram graduated from Shawnee Mission East, the University of Kansas. She's from Overland Park. She got a master's degree from American University. Her boyfriend, Yaron Lashinsky, was a devout Christian. He had one parent that was Jewish, one that was Christian, and he had moved to Christianity. He knew 3 languages, was a brilliant young man with a great support system and friends. And earlier in the day, according to one of his friends, he had purchased a ring to propose to Sarah Milgram next week when they were traveling to Jerusalem. Their crime against humanity was they were working at the Israeli embassy in the United States of America's capital, Washington, D.C. And they walked outside and got gunned down by somebody named Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. We have a huge problem in this country. For some reason, we can process something like, well, this person came from Gaza, was a hardened criminal, sneaked into the country, a descendant of Osama bin Laden or something like that, and was always going to try to find Jewish people and kill them. I'm sorry, Elias Rodriguez doesn't sound like he fits that profile to me. Elias Rodriguez from Chicago, who did this and danced on their graves, shouted, free Palestine, and ran inside, thinking he's some sort of a martyr. I don't even know if the guy's all that much of an Islamic terrorist, as much as he may have just been radicalized that we have to free Palestine. It is incredible to watch the videos at these college demonstrations where the exchange students, who this is their radicalized life, is to hate Jews and want to kill Jews, come here and study and make American friends and talk them into going to rallies in the street to free Palestine, and news crews will walk up and talk to the American kids, and they don't know anything about the issue. They're just there with their new friend that they feel good about because I'm a good person. I'm meeting people from other countries, and I'm assimilating to their culture, and I'm accepting them because I'm a great liberal, and I'm going to accept them for who and what they are. And they say that that Palestine needs to have its own state. Well, we kind of had that in Gaza, right? I don't get this. I don't know who this guy is. He clearly hasn't thought about going to prison, but dancing on their graves and celebrating free Palestine, I'm going to go ahead and wager right now that this guy really wasn't even up on the subject that much. That it's just a crazy person that thought his part to free Palestine in the United States was to go kill a couple of Jews. It's just a horrific story. We give all consideration and honor to her family, of which I'm sure is a very extended family and friends in the Kansas City area, our hearts are with you. Our thoughts are with you. We can't, it's not enough. It's not enough. This is just an unbelievably bad story. And I don't know what we can do to stop it. We're a free speech country, but the best way to start is anybody at one of these rallies, because they're radicalizing American kids now. I don't know. I don't know if this is an American kid or not. They say he's from Chicago. His name is Elias Rodriguez. Sounds to me like there's a pretty good chance he's an American citizen, but we'll see. If that's what we're doing in this country, that's not free speech. That's a crime in some way. I know they're trying. I know we got the right people in charge. I guess I'm only asking, do we have a hole in our Constitution, in our laws, and in our democracy, in our republic? Do we have a hole? Do we have a blind spot that will allow this to happen for our own children to be radicalized by people from elsewhere that believe crazy things and for no reason will just gun down two people thinking they're Jewish who were just beginning their life together? It's a sad day. Very sad day. Okay, on to the big, beautiful bill. And many of you, I can tell from calls, emails I've received, whatever, are not happy with the big, beautiful bill. You wanted more spending cut. I get it. The scoring on this is going to be around $2 trillion is cut. A typical family, it is believed, with 2 kids right now, is projected within 2 years to make $13,300 more per year in real dollars because of this. Wages for the average worker in America are expected to go up from $6,100 to $11,000, somewhere in that range, because of this and the tax cuts that are in it. The tax cuts are real. There are additional tax cuts after the ones that were already in place, and we avoided trillions of dollars in tax increases that would have begun in September. It's really hard, I know, for you to hear, and it's hard for me to say, but we have to take the wins. We won the election in November. We got our guy in there. When you add up all the good things that are happening compared to what could be happening if Kamala was president, we have to take the wins. You cannot let this thing float around for 2 or 3 years, have taxes increase, try to fight this thing while Republicans are trying to stay in power in the midterms. You had to pass it. If there's things in it you don't like, that stinks. No tax on Social Security is not in there. But they did put in $4,000 tax credit for everyone 65 and older. In a way, it's kind of a push. It's still going to save seniors 65 and older money in their taxes. It is not no tax on Social Security. But I think what they're finding with Social Security is there's a giant number of people on Social Security in America that have earned the right to collect their checks that absolutely do not need them. They don't need them. That's why so many people in their 50s aren't in the workforce. We got people everywhere retiring at age 50 in this country saying that's enough. I don't need to work anymore. I can make it in 10, 12 more years. I'm going to have another check coming in. I'm good. We're good here. I don't need to make millions of dollars. I've got enough to live out my life the way I want to live it. I don't aspire to a fancy new car every year or build a new house or whatever. Happy the way I am. I've got relatives this way. Retired at 50 and went on Obamacare. Net worth, well over $1 million. Going to make it to the finish line. Why work? Why not take both ones? I'm just going to get on Obamacare. This is what Americans will do if we keep handing out the free candy. There's protections on this in a lot of places, and we have to take the wins as we get them. If we're going to do real things with Medicaid and kick off 1.4 million illegal aliens, and we're going to require people that are able-bodied to work that are not of retirement age yet to get off Medicaid, these are reasonable things to do. These are in this, and they're beginning next year, which is important because they wanted to kick the can down the road another 4 or 5 years, which is insane. Let's take the wins. There are wins all over the place here. No tax on tips is in it. There's a child tax credit for families that goes up. They've got this enhanced deduction for seniors, which is not no tax on Social Security, but it is an enhancement for everyone in this country, 65 and older. You just got a new tax break that you didn't get last year. Business cuts are incredible. 100% expenses for equipment and factory construction. Now, I'm a small business owner. I do a podcast from home every day. I need a new computer. My computer that I do my podcast with stinks. It's overwhelmed with too much audio in it. It's only 5 years old, but I didn't buy a good enough computer to begin with. That's on me. That's my mistake as a business owner. I didn't know if the business was going to work, so I got a lesser cost one. I got a less expensive one. I need a better computer. What I think I'm hearing is, as a business owner, I get to expense the entire thing to go get whatever computer I want. That's going to be good for the economy if that's true, because I'm going to get a really good one. I'm going to go ahead and take the tax break on that. Businesses will do that. 2 million farmers, family farms, are getting their death tax reformed. There are farmers that die that cannot leave their farm to their children because the taxes on the land are so outrageous. You literally work your whole life on a family farm and you croak, and you can't leave it to your family because they can't afford to keep it because of the death taxes. There's all kinds of good stuff in here. I'm not an expert on all the language and all the things that are there, but let's try on our side to be a little happier with the wins that we get. And I mention these today because I'm not trying to play some kind of radio game here, but let's contrast it with the story that I started talking about and the insanity in this country of the violence and the illegals and the things that are really taking place that are incredible that they're happening in America, like Sarah Milgram losing her life for what? Working at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C.? Do you know this means that these were brilliant, accomplished young people with strong desires to excel in the world and do great things for others, and they got killed for it? And we're worried that, well, the no tax on Social Security didn't make it, and they didn't cut enough out of the budget, and this and that. Let's find a better way. Let's lower taxes. Let's get more people working. Let's raise the tariffs, and let's find a way to spend less than we bring in. That's all we're talking about. This is definitely spending less. It's not spending less in a way that you want. You'd rather it be $10 trillion over the life of this thing, not $2 trillion. We'd all like that. But you got to pass it. You got to get your wins when you can get them, and I say we celebrate this thing today. There's a lot of things I don't like about it, too, but I like most of it, and I'm damn glad they passed it. And the Senate better get on it and get it done. And the first thing we heard from Thune was, oh, we're going to get this thing passed. We'll get back to you around the 4th of July. Like, what? I don't understand why the Senate can't vote on it today. It's been sitting there. They see it, or at least say, hey, next week we'll have our first vote. Oh, no, they're all going to try to get their piece now. They're going to try to water it down and do whatever. Take the win. Let's go. Let's get this thing passed. Let's put it into law. I may be a terrible person, but if I were king for a day, this Elias Rodriguez that murdered those people last night in D.C., I'd have him on the Washington Mall and hangman today. I'd put it live on television. It'd be over. If I were king for a day, that's what I would do. This would be over. He'd be done. Elias Rodriguez's life would end today. Eye for an eye. Let's go to the phones. Here is Stu in Rosedale. Good morning, Stu. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, you have to say alleged,
Not if I were king for a day. I preface the whole thing by saying king for a day. If I'm king for a day, I do whatever I want.
Did you notice, though, that his name was released right along in the original news reports? I think we all know that if his name had been Muhammad, it would be days before his identity would have been released.
It's possible.
But my main point is that the murders bear an obvious resemblance to the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, allegedly committed by Luigi Mangione in December. And the question now is whether Rodriguez is going to be celebrated the way Mangione has been, and whether his GoFundMe account will approach or even exceed the $1 million that's so far been donated to Mangione. There seems to be no shortage of morons with disposable income who are eager to financially reward these cowardly, cold-blooded scumbag killers, especially if the killers claim to have a cause, no matter how reprehensible or spurious the cause may be. And it seems like the latest get-rich-quick scheme in today's America is to go out and commit some heinous, cowardly murder. And I would be remiss if I were to leave Carmelo Anthony out of the murderers fundraising derby.
Well, Stu, I am so glad that you called, and I'm so disappointed in myself that I had not even considered this being a copycat killing, but it sure has all the markings of the same thing that guy did to the United Healthcare CEO, and clearly these people were targeted for a specific reason, and that was being Jewish, and he waited outside, and he shot him, and then he ran inside and chanted Free Palestine, and as they were arresting him, he looked like he was having a good time, like, hey, take my picture. I think you're onto something here. I think this could be as much not about radical Islam as it is about copycat killing. I've got a reason. I want to free Palestine. I'm going to go do this. Maybe I'll be famous and people will know who I am. They don't consider living 50 years or 75 years in prison, which will be hell for this person. It won't be good. It won't be good for Luigi either, the guy who killed the United Healthcare CEO. But they don't consider that. This younger generation, they're just looking for fame, man. They want to be famous on social media, whatever. And my guess is you're exactly right. There might be a copycat element to this, and it's just atrocious. If that's what this is coming to, we've lost our civilization. We're not civilized people at all. This is a shame. That's an excellent point, Stu. Thank you so much. All right. I thought maybe Stu had something else there, but that's great. Great call. I really am disappointed in myself that I hadn't thought of that, because there's a lot of similarities to what this person did, just walking right up there and doing that. And I just can't get over how hard it is. I don't care if you went to Shawnee Mission East and grew up in Overland Park or not, how hard it is to go through puberty, be a teenager, all the angst that comes with that. Focus your life, get a degree from the University of Kansas, go get a master's degree from American University, meet the man of your dreams who speaks 3 languages, has 3 degrees. This couple was off and running to a planned out life that they had worked their asses off to get. They had done every single thing right every day. And that's not to say one life is more precious than the other, but I can't get past this one. I cannot get past that these young people were the best among young people. And their sin was walking out of the Israeli embassy. I mean, it's just absolutely unfathomable. It's crazy that that's happened. All right, let's check in with Kevin in Overland Park. Hi, Kevin. Good morning. You're on Uncanceled.
Hey, Kevin. I was just thinking on this one. I mean, it's just horrible. My thoughts and prayers are to the families involved there and the friends. But we know that there are people in this world who love to spend their money to sow hatred in this country. And I'm wondering, is there money behind this one even? I mean, we've seen money being used to organize protests and stuff at the universities. It's like, I'm just wondering. I mean, it's just speculation on my part.
Well, there's definitely money behind political causes that are anti-Jew. There's no question. There's no question about that. So if you want to tie the whole thing with one big bow, the answer would be yes.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, it's like, what will it take for us I mean, he's already been kicked out of his own country. He can't go back. They keep passing laws to keep him out of that country. And it's like, okay, either we kick him out or we, it's like, okay, you're accessory to this crime. So something where an end can be put on this, because his son's right behind him.
Yep. Good call, buddy. I appreciate you calling every time. Kevin's one of our more thoughtful callers from Overland Park. Nice work there. Appreciate you thinking about that. Terribly tragic thing. One of our own here in Kansas City, Sarah Milgram, has died at the hands of a terrorist in Washington, D.C. overnight or last night. I got a buddy who's actually at the White House today, was sending me pictures. He said he was about a block away when the thing happened last night. Patrick Touhey from the Show Me Institute joins us next on Uncanceled. Patrick Touhey is in from the Show Me Institute, showmeinstitute.org. He has penned an excellent column about the border war is back on between Missouri and Kansas. Hello, Patrick. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Game on.
Game on. You were listening yesterday, and people were calling in talking about you.
I was walking out of Costco, and I caught the end of the segment, and all I heard was someone say, that's what Patrick Touhey doesn't understand, the quality of life. And I immediately texted you, like, do I get equal time?
Yes, you do. Well, I was talking about quality of life, and that sports teams, to me, are different than a lot of other initiatives. And the basis of what I've said, look, I'm a different kind of guy. I love competition. I think it's great for these states to compete. I don't think you believe that, so I think we disagree on that. But I do think there's a quality of life to sports teams that really doesn't exist with Black and Veatch, for example, or some of these other things that we see. I
agree.
We all agree with that.
There is something, and it's tough to measure. Some economists have tried to measure it, and they've looked at things to kind of figure out what the value is. But yes, it adds something. So I've lived here 20 years. Actually, next month will be 20 years.
Nice.
I love Kansas City. I have written and said for years that I love Kansas City. We've published studies talking about how great Kansas City is, and it is exactly because of quality of life. And quality of life is driven mostly by the cost of living, the cost of housing particularly. And Kansas City has done such a great job cultivating that, and I don't want it to lose that edge. But quality of life and low cost of housing is often not done because of government. In Kansas City's case, it's because we haven't adopted all the horrible land use policies that other cities around the country have. But in Kansas City, we are losing that edge. And when I say Kansas City, I don't just mean...
You mean all of it?
The whole area. And I love the competition, too. In fact, I like to point out, and Pete and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, I like to point out that when Kansas City gets a lot of this glowing national attention, it's often the metro area.
Sure.
They'll be talking specifically about Olathe or about Overland Park, but you get the mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, who likes to say, we're doing great. Like, they're doing great.
Yeah.
We're not doing so great. The crime stuff, that's about Kansas City, Missouri. So I like that. And yes, the suburbs on the Kansas side are driving a lot of our good news. You know, Kearney and Liberty, Lee's Summit, those guys are doing well too. But the point I just want to make is I think, and these subsidies and this border war gets to it, I think too many small government conservatives are confusing quality of life issues as they are created by free markets and good government and the ones that are created by subsidies and handouts. Kansas City is great not because of government. Kansas City is great because of the people here and because of the low cost of living, which is largely a result of government getting out of the way. I don't want people to think that we've got a quality of life because we've got teams, and we've got teams because we've got our government handouts. Right. That's heading us in the wrong direction.
Okay, so I agree with almost everything you said right there, and you and I know this. We agree on more than we don't agree on. I don't think of things like property taxes, home values, and things like that as a quality of life issue. To me, that's like my career, my bank account. That's numbers on a sheet to me. Okay, that's part of my life, but I don't look at that as quality of life. Quality of life to me is crime rates, fresh air, open spaces, ball games, a concert I want to go see, things that we do. And I think the quality of life here is very good in the Midwest. And I don't even use it like a lot of people do. I'm not a hunter or a fisherman, really, to speak of, and this is a great place to be a hunter or a fisherman. You wrote in your column, and I kind of agree with you here, but I think yours is more absolute than I would be. You write, Kansas Governor Laura Kelly indicated last year she was never really serious about the truce. But now Missouri has let the truce expire, and in doing so, our lawmakers join Kansas in an economic race to the bottom. It's bad policy. Worse, it's profoundly unserious governance. I believe it can be bad policy and it can be bad governance, but it's not absolute. Do you believe that this is absolutely bad?
I think if Kansas and Missouri are competing with each other and moving companies back and forth, like Applebee's years ago, we are spending a lot of public money without getting a regional benefit. So Applebee's moving back and forth across state line doesn't create regional jobs. They're just chasing the subsidies. I've told the guys at the Economic Development Corporation in Kansas City, Missouri, you guys should have two offices, one in New York and one in L.A., and you should be talking to companies there saying, move to the Kansas City area. It'll be so much cheaper for you to do your daily stuff. That is a kind of competition I would like. But if we're just moving jobs back and forth across county lines here, that's a lot of public funds that aren't benefiting the region. So that's where I say that Kansas City, and believe me, I would love Overland Park, as the mayor said yesterday on Pete's show, to say, look, we've got some of the lowest property taxes in the area, and for Kansas City, Missouri, where I live, to respond to that by trying to compete. That I like. Make government efficient, all that pressure. When the competition becomes handouts to corporations, I think that's a different thing. And I don't think that serves the public good. But absolutely, I like competition as far as taxes, as far as police force, as far as crime, all the things you've talked about. Cities need to understand they are in a market. People can live wherever they want, and they need to do that stuff.
So I'm an absolutist when it comes to competing. Like, I can't stand 7-year-old soccer games where they don't keep score. I'm not kidding. I don't see the good in that, because a 7-year-old...
By the way, the kids always know who won.
They do. The 7-year-old sits down on the weekend and watches football or baseball with dad or mom or whoever, and they're keeping score, and they know if the Royals or Chiefs won, and they care. And if they're capable at 7 of knowing that, they ought to keep track of their own game.
Okay, let me try to put it this way. There's healthy competition and there's unhealthy competition.
What's unhealthy competition?
So let's think of siblings. Healthy competition is studying to get better grades than your sister, right? Or joining the track team and trying to run faster than your older brother's records.
Okay.
Those are healthy things. When you pass them in the hallway, cutting them because you want them to be unable to compete, right? Or you steal their things. That's unhealthy competition.
Well, that isn't competition. That's a crime.
No, it's competition. It's using whatever you can.
Hurting them. You're cutting them. You're hurting them.
That's what economic development subsidies do. You are hurting your own tax base for a Pyrrhic victory. And what's going to happen with these teams is whichever state supposedly wins the team, it won't be a benefit to the region, but the taxpayers in that state will lose out. So even when you win, you lose.
So as an absolutist when it comes to competing, this one's easy for me, and I'm just going to ask you because this is what I thought I wanted to ask you. If Kansas and Missouri shouldn't be competing each other, why should Donald Trump be competing with these other countries?
I don't understand what you mean.
Why are we bringing the car jobs back from Canada and Mexico to America? Why are we doing an economic deal with China and all these other countries? Why would we compete with these countries and make good deals for ourselves? Why wouldn't we just have a truce with everybody?
Well, those are completely different situations.
How are they different? Kansas and Missouri are their own states. This country was basically founded as 50 different countries.
Right. I get that. But if you set up a tariff system, okay, and you want to bring businesses back home, but you're driving up the cost for consumers, somebody can say, well, you've won something, but it's not really benefiting the people in your area because who cares where the car is made? If it's not well made or if it's super expensive, you have won something, but the cost to all of us has gone up.
Would you agree that Trump is competing against other countries?
I believe Trump thinks he's competing against other countries.
Okay, you don't believe it?
No, I don't. It depends on the deal. It depends on the project.
Let's just take Apple. $500 billion worth of investment. They're going to be building plants here. They're coming out of China. They're bigger in India. He wants less in India, but he's $500 billion worth of manufacturing plants from Apple are coming. Right. Apple has stated as such. I believe that's going to happen. If Apple has said that, they've got a duty to their shareholders to follow through and do that. Is that a good thing for America?
It may be.
But we shouldn't be doing this?
No, here's what you need to understand. If I'm bringing the Apple plant back to the United States to manufacture it, but the cost goes way up for American consumers, you can say, well, there's a benefit because the factory's been brought here.
On an iPhone?
Or you can say, if the cost has gone up, there is no benefit. It's never the win. You can say we're in competition, but the win is never as clear as what you're representing.
I know, you're chopping down dominoes. I get that, but if I'm getting a new iPhone every 4 years instead of every 3, who cares?
Well,
I mean, this is great for America.
Again, it depends on more than just where the product is made. There are so many variables that go into this stuff. Just saying we're bringing something home isn't necessarily.
So you think Trump's failing with all this?
I haven't said that at all.
Okay, well, what do you think? Do you think this is going to work, and do you think he should be doing this?
I think a lot of it remains to be seen.
Okay.
He's been in just, 100 days? There's been a lot of chaos. Some of it I'm a fan of. Some of it I don't know.
Rand Paul said the same thing, right?
So we'll have to see.
He's now said, I've seen enough. I like a lot of what I see.
Again, I may like a lot of what I see, but you're asking me what are the ramifications of a trade deal that Apple's making commitments. I don't know.
Do you think America should economically, and in every sense of the word, compete against other countries?
It depends. It depends on what you define by a win. Yes, we can bring a lot of manufacturing back to the United States. But if in doing so, we drive up the price of all sorts of products for consumers, and we are relatively worse off as a result of it, then my point is you've won something, but at what cost?
You're suggesting that that's a given that that's going to happen.
I don't know.
I know, but why would you bring that up? Why wouldn't you have to be optimistic and say, hey, this looks great?
I'd love to be optimistic, but that's not a realistic world. The problem we have in Missouri and in Kansas City and Overland Park is we've got all these politicians who are optimistic and sell us garbage deals, which cost us long down the road because they thought, hey, be optimistic. Why are you such a glass half empty kind of guy? I get that all the time because I show up and say, have you considered the unintended consequences? Have you considered the implications of what you're doing?
Yesterday, you and Pete sort of agreed the Star bonds are crap and nobody's going to want to buy them if a team goes to Kansas. Is that pretty much the tone of your conversation?
I think a lot of investors are not going to be satisfied with Star bonds when they get the deal.
All right, great. So here's your investment opportunities, Patrick Touhey. You just won $1 million. You got $1 million to buy a bond, a Star bond. Probably not your first idea, but it has to be used to buy a Star bond. Do you want to buy it on a soccer team that had 1,600 people at Arrowhead called the Wiz that Lamar Hunt has decided he doesn't want anymore, and they're going to build a stadium and hope that soccer gets big? A NASCAR track that has one event per year with no lights, and they're taking $300 million to build this track where we've never had NASCAR. A minor league baseball team, a furniture mall, any of these other things, or an aquarium a museum in Overland Park. See, to me, my background is sports. Sports doesn't fail. It's very hard for it to fail. There is no way the NFL and the Major League Baseball are going to fail in Kansas if they do Star bonds. That is my promise to you. Is I don't know anything except that Clark Hunt will not lose. If he builds a new stadium, he will pay those bonds off. He will probably buy a third of them. I've heard people say that he might buy $300 million worth of the bonds himself because he gets paid his interest back, and all of the sales tax, instead of going to the state of Kansas, is now coming back to him. That's a pretty damn good deal for Clark Hunt, who's got about $6 billion. Isn't it?
This is a good deal for the billionaires that own the teams.
So why wouldn't I want to buy a Star bond on a Chiefs stadium? Because that seems like the greatest investment ever.
Because I don't have $300 million. No,
I know, but what you guys were saying was nobody wants to buy these bonds.
Correct.
And I'm going to argue everybody's going to want to buy the Chiefs bonds.
Then, look, if that were the case, if what you were saying is the case, they'd already have broken ground on a stadium on the Kansas side.
I hear you say that, but I don't understand that. The Chiefs would not have said that. They wouldn't. Why wouldn't you go to the deadline and get every possible deal on the table if you're the Chiefs?
Well, that's what I think is going on. I think Kansas is being used to make Missouri jealous. They're never serious because the Star bonds aren't the vehicle that these guys need. Unfortunately,
it's
on the
70% of a new stadium.
Again, but it's not guaranteed by the state or by the municipality, and it's not a check up front.
No, I know, but Clark Hunt's talking about buying his own bonds.
If he's talking about, that's one thing. But what you've got to consider is that the investors, and this, again, like I said yesterday, this isn't me saying it, it's been reported, investors are skittish about deals where they could lose because the city or the state isn't going to backstop the investment.
It literally would be buying bonds in Kansas where he gets interest and gets paid back versus just giving the money away in Missouri and spending it.
So look, what you and I are doing is we're talking about a deal on which we have no information. We don't know what the Royals and the Arrow...
I have history that Star bonds work with sports. That's way on my side. It cannot be argued. The Speedway was paid off 7 years early. You know they're still supposed to be paying until 27?
Yeah.
But the state of Kansas is collecting all that money. Yeah. Now they got 2 weekends, and they got the American Royal Barbecue, and they've got a casino. They've got all these things there that the state of Kansas is just taking all this money in. That's a pretty good deal.
Again, you can point to the successes.
Well, don't build an aquarium or whatever the hell this thing is out here. That was the dumbest thing I ever saw. I would never have invested in that, would you?
Well, look, plenty of people did.
But that's stupid. That's the best real estate in Kansas City. That's a foolish thing to do.
It is easy after the fact.
No, it was easy up front. They built an architectural wonder that nobody wants to go inside and buy a ticket for.
Again, what we're doing here is trying to look forward and make predictions.
Museums are funded by rich people all over this town, are they not? Aren't museums funded by the richest people in town?
Perhaps. I don't know.
Okay, well, let's not bust Star bonds out on a museum.
Again, I'm sure plenty of people regret their investment. I'm sure the state regrets the project.
On that project, yeah.
But all the argument going into it was all this kind of optimistic stuff that you were talking about a minute ago. And it takes people coming in and saying, before the project, not looking back afterwards, and saying, here are the risks. This is a bad idea. And so that's what I do. And I look at the opportunities facing Kansas City and Kansas in this case, and I say, look, guys, consider the implications of what you're doing. If you want to grow your economy, there's no shortcut. You've got to provide public safety. You've got to provide infrastructure and then get out of the way. Let housing people build houses. Let hoteliers build hotels. Let restaurateurs build restaurants. You have no business as a municipality. You have no expertise getting in and making those decisions. And that's what all these subsidies do.
Do you think if the Chiefs stay in Missouri, they're going to refurbish Arrowhead Stadium or build a new stadium where the Royals are?
I have no idea. And they haven't told us.
Because to me, this is all about the Super Bowl and the Final Four.
I have no idea.
If we're going to do this, we're going to spend the money. Let's get a Super Bowl in Kansas City and a Final Four.
Again, those are decisions for private owners of private companies to make. I would love them to make the decisions that are best for them. I just don't want them reaching in my pocket to pay for it.
I'm with you there. It's bad business all the way around. But we know what the best business would be and the most money. And I just don't see the Star Bonds as failures. If you walk the streets of Wyandotte County and talk to people who've lived there for 50 years, they're so much prouder of being from Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas right now than they were 20 years ago. When you got here 20 years ago, it was starting to come back. Speedway was 3 or 4 years old.
And what did they do?
I'm telling you, that was the worst part of Kansas City. Nobody even wanted to drive through Wyandotte County.
And what did they do? They used eminent domain to take people's homes and clear the area. And so again, if your view is I want government to make all the decisions for me. I want government to decide where I should be able to own private property and tell me when they can take my land from me because they think they've got a better idea. And you point to 1 or 2 projects where it worked. I can point to you hundreds of projects where government overreached, made promises that were never realistic, and the project failed. And so, again, there are plenty of projects, plenty of publicly funded projects that fail all the time. The vast majority of them do. Yes, you can always point to one or two that work.
Our city would be better off without an airport?
No.
That was eminent domain.
Again, you can say eminent domain is worthwhile. It exists so that cities can build public good infrastructures. But the way eminent domain is being used is to take people's homes, to build shopping malls, to build speedways, to build entertainment districts. Right. That's not the proper use of government.
Airport, okay, sports not. Yes?
Do you not see the difference between an airport and a...
Sort of, except I've lived here my whole life. That was blight, man. Kansas City, Kansas, it was awful. And it's not anymore. We go there. I go there more than I go to Overland Park. I live over in Lenexa.
Right, I get that.
We love it out there.
The argument you're making is that government knows best, and government should be able to take people's land to experiment.
I'm telling you, we're a better city because of what's happened there the last 25 years.
I'm telling you, you're a better city if the government respects private property, if the government provides basic services and allows the free market to do what the free market will.
Get rid of the airports. We got too many of them. Got to give those people their land back. How many airports do we have in this town? 30?
I have no idea.
They've all taken somebody's land. Every stinking one of them.
Again, you have to understand the difference between an airport, a utility, and a speedway or a shopping mall.
I'm in so much trouble. We're really late, buddy. This is awesome. I had fun. I hope you enjoyed it.
Of course.
Well, I'll give you the last word. Anything else you want to add?
No, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah, I love this. This was fun. He's Patrick Touhey from the ShowMeInstitute.org. This is Uncanceled on KCMO. Hey, if you caught me and Patrick halfway through, don't forget the whole thing's up on the podcast page at KCMOTalkRadio.com later today. You can hear it all. It's time to check in with Mark Van Parlay in the control room. Jacques Vaughn is the newest assistant coach at the University of Kansas, and I'll predict it right here today. He'll also be the next head coach at Kansas.
I love it. I love the move. They had to bring somebody from the outside. I mean, technically, he was a KU guy, but to get a new coach from the outside, that's big for Bill Self. He keeps the same guys around him, so I think this will be good for recruiting, for the new NIL stuff. I think this is going to be great.
He's the single most overqualified assistant basketball coach in history.
That's true.
In college.
Yeah.
7-year NBA head coach, is now an assistant at KU.
I agree with you, too. He'll be the next head coach.
You got to love that one. Ethan Kirkwood, 21 years old, McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, charged with providing alcohol to a minor. Have you heard this story?
The guy that fell, right?
Yeah, it's the guy that fell. His buddy was only 20. Kavon Markwood is the dude that fell 21 feet over the Pittsburgh Pirates railing down onto the field. It almost killed him. He lived. His buddy is 21. Markwood was only 20, so he has been charged with that crime. And do you remember Phil Witt, the anchor at Fox 4?
Oh, yeah.
He has penned an op-ed in the Kansas City Star. Phil's been very quiet in retirement. And I don't think he's really going right or left here, but his thing, I've known Phil forever. Good man, always nice to me, my family, my kids. He is passionate about harvesters and hunger in our community, and he's pretty upset at the defunding that the Trump administration is doing for food services. Okay. It's an interesting read. I don't think you'll see it too far right or left. I'll just say this. It's something to think about. Phil's a good guy. We should probably give it a listen. That's Uncanceled. The Vince Show is coming up next.